have a significant sentence hanging over your head. It's not the max the state asked for, but it is still significant. I'm not undermining any of your prior history. I'm looking at this case.
Blueface did not just walk out of prison on November 3rd. He walked out as a different man. And that is not internet exaggeration. We can see it clearly in the first home video he posted after serving roughly 21 months of a 4-year probation violation sentence, where his face is suddenly a chaotic grid of corporate logos, his body heavier, his movements slower, and his voice flatter than fans remember from 2023. We are not just looking at a rapper coming home from a tough stint in a California state facility. We are looking at someone who, according to longtime followers and industry bloggers, seems spiritually switched off, moving through his own welcome home moment like he is reading from a script he did not write.
So the judge did grant him time served. He said that basically, best case scenario, he'll be back by summer.
This next summer.
Oh, Blueface is calling right now.
The timing makes this even harder to dismiss. Blueface, legally Jonathan Jamal Porter, was locked up in early 2024 after a judge finally revoked his earlier suspended sentence over that 2021 North Hollywood security incident, hit him with the maximum 4 years, and sent him to a level 3 prison that he himself described in a March 2025 interview as a lot of misery. Official records show his admission date as September 4th, 2024, with a parole window expected closer to December 2025. Yet he surfaces at home nearly a month early, on November 3rd, looking like a walking billboard for Walgreens and Chase. We have a man who went in with his signature face and comes out just under 2 years later, with his entire identity literally stamped over. The rollout did not start with him either. Before Blueface ever showed his own face, his parents were already feeding speculation. On November 2nd, his mom Carlissa posted a cryptic Instagram story of someone under the covers, as his son, Javon, walked into the room smiling, with a caption thanking God, while his father, Jonathan Porter Sr., declared, "Today is the end of a chapter in my family's life. Tomorrow is the beginning of a new chapter." That is 1 day before the official home video drops, 1 day before the world sees the new face. We can see how that sequence, from parents' coded posts to the reveal of a heavily branded rapper, set off observers who were already primed to look for something deeper than a simple early release.
Not as of now.
Yeah.
Because she's incarcerated, but hopefully when she gets out, she'll come bring him up here or whatnot.
Then we hit the first clear visual shock, the tattoos. On camera, the Blueface we knew from 2018's breakout viral run is gone, replaced with a forehead, cheeks, and jaw covered in random-looking company symbols, fashion marks, and sports-style logos that insiders say do not match any known gang signatures inside California's system. We are not talking about a themed piece or an artistic sleeve. We are looking at scattered brand marks like Chase Bank and Walgreens, stacked in a way that makes no commercial sense and no obvious personal statement. When fans freeze frame that November 3rd clip, they point out not just the ink, but the eyes. Flat, unfocused, with an energy that does not match the defiant, "still that dude 2 years later" line he throws at the camera. Publicly, Blueface has tried to laugh it off. In one early post-release conversation, when pressed about the face logos, he shrugs and says, "I got tired of my face, man. I had that face for 28 years. I wanted a new face."
We vibing right now, but you know when that business get involved, it might get a little weary.
On the surface, that sounds like classic Blueface bravado, the same offhand tone he used when he used to talk about messy relationships and online beef. But if we line that up with how subdued he seems elsewhere, and with the way former associates describe his energy as heavy and checked out, that one-liner starts to feel less like a joke and more like a pre-approved cover story for something he does not want to unpack. Meanwhile, his own family's language around this transition has fed the unease rather than calming it. The father's end of a chapter and new chapter framing reads less like a simple parole celebration and more like a coded acknowledgement that everyone close to him knew the man walking in back in September 2024 would not be the same one stepping out in November 2025. Sources familiar with the family say those posts were not random. They were timed to the day and hinted that whatever was coming had been anticipated for weeks. When we put that next to the sudden corporate branding on his skin, the question becomes unavoidable. How much of this did his inner circle know? And how much did they accept as the price of getting him home early?
Because it's so early right now, they just want to see how I program, make sure I'm going to follow the rules before they let me travel.
I mean, if you don't want to talk about it, you don't have to, but the night that this shooting happens, like, what the f*** happened?
Yeah. I mean, everybody know about that.
This is at Floyd's strip club, right?
No, this was at a different club.
Or was at a strip club, though, right?
Yeah, it was at a strip club.
Inside the conspiracy space, the first explanation that took off was the prison angle. Former inmates and gang culture commentators claim that face tattoos are often used inside as humiliation. a way to mark someone permanently for entertainment or control. In that reading, Blueface may have agreed to become a human drawing board rather than end up as someone's vulnerable target in a level 3 yard. Under that theory, the randomness of the logos makes sense as mockery. It is meant to look ridiculous. But law enforcement consultants who track Prison Inc. say there is something off here, because the logos on his face do not map neatly onto any known crew, numbers, or coded messages usually seen in that environment. That is where the second, darker interpretation starts creeping in. And this is where Katt Williams' name comes crashing into the story.
I think the baby looks like him, honestly.
You don't think the baby looks nothing like you at all?
What you think?
In his now legendary 2024 Club Shay Shay sit-down, Katt laid out his views on what he calls humiliation rituals. Those moments where entertainers are pushed into dresses, masks, shaved heads, or public embarrassments as proof of submission to powerful forces. At one point, he challenges the room with, "Show me one person who ever wore a dress in Hollywood unsuccessfully," using that to argue that these symbolic acts are part of a repeatable ritual that opens doors for the chosen and breaks down anyone who refuses. He is not just joking about wardrobe. He is describing a system that rewards compliance and punishes resistance. Katt has also been explicit that this is not some cute metaphor for PR stunts, but part of what he calls the age of truth, a moment where the shadow networks we label Illuminati or whoever runs the world are less able to keep things hidden because their old gatekeepers are aging out. In a 2024 profile, he says the people behind those organizations are now 80 to 100, and that with enough courage, curiosity, and money, anyone can dig into how these entities actually operate. His self-assigned mission, as he frames it, is to study how powerful entities become powerful and why vulnerable people are being taken advantage of through pipelines that, in his words, all exist and it's all real. When we hear that and then watch Blueface walk out branded from forehead to jaw, the overlap between theory and visual evidence becomes hard to ignore. Katt's former partner, Hazel E., accidentally adds another twist to this web.
Last time me and Blue did it was right before he went to jail. So if I was pregnant, I could be like 2 months, 2.5 months. So
in early 2025, reports confirm that she and Blueface are officially casually dating after years of on and off contact, with sources saying they have known each other since around 2018. Hazel E., of course, is not just a reality star from Love and Hip Hop Hollywood. She is also the same woman who has spoken publicly and affectionately about her past relationship with Katt Williams, praising his intelligence and guidance. Now, in the months after Blueface's release, we suddenly have a triangle of connections. The rapper with the suspicious new face, the reality personality who once leaned on Katt as a mentor, and the comedian who has been warning for decades about submission rituals, occult symbolism, and industry puppetry. Industry sources look at that proximity and wonder if Blueface might have heard Katt's ideas firsthand, long before this prison bid. If Hazel E. had been around Katt during the years when he was already telling friends he wanted to know things around the corner before others so he could alert his people, then it is not far-fetched to think those conversations might have echoed into Blueface's orbit. That makes the post-prison optics even stranger. How does a man who has allegedly brushed up against someone who spends his life exposing humiliation rituals step out as what looks, on camera, like a textbook example of one?
Hello, this is a free call from an inmate in the men's central jail.
At the same time, Blueface's personal life has become a rolling advertisement for chaos, which only strengthens the theory that his spirit has been systematically destabilized. Earlier this year, he was on podcasts reviving a 2-year-old allegation that Chrisean Rock had a private encounter with Offset, while Offset was still publicly married to Cardi B, reigniting a scandal both Offset and Rock deny, and that reportedly contributed to Cardi's final estrangement before her 2024 divorce filing. That choice to drag an old allegation back into the light, just as he is trying to re-enter the public eye, reads to some insiders as a man grasping for relevance, to others as someone being nudged to generate as much messy noise as possible. Meanwhile, his co-parenting dynamic with Chrisean has only grown more hostile, which plays directly into the image of a fractured, easily manipulated figure. In recent interviews, he has described leaving her emotionally in the desert, while urging her to become more practical about shared parenting, only for her to go live and accuse him of exploiting compensated topics and failing their son. Their feud then flares into public meltdowns around his prison release, with his first baby mama, Jaden Alexis, calling Rock a crackhead on livestream, and threatening to pull her own children from the situation if boundaries are not respected. The more his domestic life unravels in the open, the more he looks like the perfect candidate for the kind of breaking and remaking Katt has spent years dissecting. Even the way Blueface talks about his time inside hints at a man caught between genuine growth and something more performative.
Like, what's your mental like? You straight?
Oh, yeah, no, I'm chilling, man. I'm in my environment. You know, I'm always soak up and adapt to it. So.
In one post-release conversation, he apologizes to a past shooting target, saying he did not mean to cause harm, and mentioning classes he took in a program he jokingly calls Civilization University. On paper, that sounds like rehabilitation, but when we put that against the blank stare, the corporate face stamps, and the sudden talk of putting on 60 extra pounds in prison for fights and fades, as he told streamer DDG, it starts to look more like someone reciting the rehabilitation script, while his appearance tells a completely different story. The physical bulk up itself became another talking point. Blueface claims he intentionally binged on mashed potatoes and oatmeal with commissary money until he was nearly sick, all so he could handle confrontation behind bars, and, after release, angle for a money fight with Jake Paul from a new heavyweight frame. That would be a standard post-prison pivot for a chaos-driven entertainer, if not for the fact that every new interview, every new stunt, is competing with the silent message on his forehead. Fans are not fixated on his boxing ambitions. They are zooming in on the Chase logo by his eyebrow and asking why a man who once bragged about independence now looks like he signed his face away.
I see what happened. You all right, bro? You good? That's why I up at. I should have took care of my business, you know? We jump in the car with him. Follow the truck. Follow the truck. So, boom, long story short, man, we don't find the truck. I'm like, man, just go back to my car, bro. I'll go back to the car.
And hovering over all of this is Katt's broader claim that these rituals, whether dresses, shaved heads, or bizarre tattoos, are tied to what he calls Baphomet-style allegiance, a long-game normalization of symbols and gestures that signal loyalty to unseen benefactors. He talks about how terms like transgender and the casual use of goat migrated from esoteric ritual language into mainstream slang, arguing that these shifts were not random, but part of a slow conditioning process. If we apply that lens to Blueface's new look, the random brand marks stop being random. They become part of a visual vocabulary only fully understood by the people who decide which careers rise and which get quietly shut down, raising the question of whether this latest transformation is really about his choices at all, or about a message being sent through him to every other unstable celebrity watching from the sidelines and wondering what happens if they refuse to play along. Within hours of his release, Blueface's homecoming turned into a three-ring circus. Jaden and Chrisean trading digital jabs, Hazel E trending for a nightclub moment, and that strange, soft-spoken apology clip being replayed and slowed down like we were all watching a hostage confession, frame by frame. We see the outline of classic damage control, but the timing makes it feel more like a smokescreen. Flood the feed with messy romance headlines, drown out the deeper question of what actually happened to him inside, and who now benefits from this new, compliant version of Blueface that keeps saying he took a couple classes, while refusing to talk about what he really studied for almost 2 years.
Was pregnant then?
I don't know nothing about that.
Did she know she was pregnant?
Nobody knows nothing about that girl.
Okay, well, allegedly.
From there, the pattern becomes impossible to ignore. We have seen this playbook before. Britney shaving her head and swinging umbrellas just before being locked into lifetime control. Ye disappearing behind masks, numbers, and symbols. Gucci Mane walking out leaner, quieter, and sparking clone debates that never fully faded down. Every time a star comes back looking spiritually flipped, we see the same cycle. Weight shifts, hollow eyes, sudden devotion to self-improvement, and a long silence about what projects, if any, they actually created while supposedly locked in with nothing but time. With Blueface, insiders quietly insist he did not pen a serious verse in that entire stretch, forcing us to ask what kind of lessons were really being drilled into him if they were not musical. Then there are the tattoos, the part nobody can scroll past. Walgreens Center like a bullseye, Chase hovering on the forehead, Major League Baseball, YSL, fashion and sports marks scattered like magnets on a fridge, not like any coherent street statement. Critics call it pure mockery, a way of turning a once cocky rapper into a walking corporate meme, a billboard that did not even get paid in dollars for the ad space. Conspiracy channels go further, arguing that the placement is coded. Brands standing in for teams, banks standing in for gatekeepers, logos as a new language that only the highest levels of the industry understand. The way a shaved head or a bright red hat once said more to insiders than any caption ever could.
It was hearsay, nope, nothing was on camera, nobody said I did nothing. They just said, oh, it was shooting.
Okay, but since it was based on the robbery, but I mean, they could have been assholes.
No, they could have been.
We're still going to charge you because you were out of danger at that point. Because, there's certain rules. I remember when I got my gun in New York, they explained to me, okay, if someone robs your house,
you're not allowed
a gun, you have to run away.
Yeah, you're not allowed to chase
Because if you pull out your gun and they run and you shoot them in the back, you can get charged.
And just when the focus should have been on that new, unsettling image, Blueface used his first big post-prison sit-down to drag an old landmine back into the room. The allegation that Chrisean linked up with Offset while Offset was still publicly tied to Cardi B, a triangle that already helped fracture one of hip-hop's most watched marriages. It had been nearly 2 years since that story first surfaced. Both Offset and Chrisean had pushed back, and Cardi had already filed and moved on. But suddenly, he is repeating the same bomb on a fresh platform. Why now? Why this topic at this exact moment, when every major outlet is already pointed at his face? Either he is chasing chaos instinctively, or someone around him understands that reigniting A-list relationship drama is the fastest way to turn the public away from the more uncomfortable question: who else has a script with his name on it? When we step back, something colder emerges. Blueface is not the first rapper to walk through the prison industry pipeline and come out changed. And he will not be the last, but he might be the first one who looks like he was rebranded in real time, literally tagged and relaunched like a product line, with his own features turned into ad space and his scandals timed like a marketing campaign. If Katt Williams is even half right about the age of truth we are sliding into, then whatever reshaped Blueface behind those walls was not just punishment. It was a warning shot, aimed at every unstable star watching him and wondering what happens if they stop playing along. So now we have to ask, do you think this is all random chaos? Or are we watching a carefully staged transformation in plain sight? Drop your thoughts, connect the dots we missed, and until next time, stay sharp, stay curious, and we will see you in the next deep dive.